Greetings and welcome to another Warhammer 40,000 kill team video, where today I'm going over how I made my own custom Gellerpox kill team. But before we get into things, please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. Let me know what you thought of today's video. Did you like it? And remember, I've got a Discord you can check out in the episode description below, and a affiliate Element Games, and a Patreon if you want to give me some more support as well. So yeah, I've been meaning to do a lot of, a hobby update video, because I did one about 18 months ago showing all the kill teams I'd painted up. And since then, I've painted a lot up, but I wanted to show off a particular kill team today, which is my custom Gellerpox team, because I've been playing the Gellerpox Infected for a while. I've actually been doing this for teams I've settled on, because I last did it for my Lucidian Star Striders, where I basically made them for mostly Escher and Forge-World Necromunda miniatures. But I wanted to do something different for my Gellerpox, because while I like some of the Gellerpox miniatures, I'm not a fan of them all, and I wanted to just bring my own touch to a kill team that I was am planning to play for a long time. So today I wanted to go over how I went through the process in terms of coming up with what I went with in the end, speaking to friends for advice, finding what miniatures to use. So basically you can kind of do the same, because when I want to kit bash my teams, basically convert them as proxies, I like to try to be as close as possible to the silhouette of the original miniature. So when it came to sketching / planning out what I was going to proxy with, originally I had a few ideas. I wanted to do something based on Tyranids, because I was like, Tyranids don't really have a kill team at the moment, because I try and avoid factions that already exist, because I want to make a proxy team that isn't confusing, and it is quite confusing when you see different races that already have kill teams used in a very similar way. So I tried and avoiding that. But with Tyranids, it was quite difficult, because in the same vein, I was speaking to my friend Orion, and he was doing his own Gellerpox proxy at the same time, interestingly enough. So we were sharing and comparing notes, bouncing ideas off each other. So I looked through the Tyranid range, and the only issue was, while you were finding a multitude of 40mm bases miniatures, because you need 4 of them to represent your Hulks, none of them really fit too well for the theme I was going with. Because while I could basically convert the Hulks from Tyranid warriors, which was fine, converting the mutants was more problematic. The glitchlings, I thought, maybe I could use the new Neurogaunts, so the Synapse Termagaunts from the new Tyranid release for 10th edition. But then, yeah, it was difficult trying to figure out what would be a suitable warrior, because Gene Stealers are too squat, as well as Termagaunts. So maybe Hormagaunts, but it's not exactly great. And then the issue is, because Flying Rippers are gone, while I could use Rippers for worms, I can't really use anything else to make my own flies and then also fleas. So that was a bit difficult, because technically I could have used Spore Mines to proxy stuff as well, but it didn't really fit as much. And then thinking about doing it as fused with Gene Stealer Colts just made it more confusing, because then it'd be I would be actually, because I tried looking at doing the Gene Stealer Mutants, but they're on 32mm base, the Aberrants, so they're actually not big enough. So the only one I could use was the Leader, Aberrant Leader, but the issue is he's 20 pounds alone, so I'd need 4 of him just to make this kill team work. So I had to quickly strike out Tyranids. But then I was looking at Necrons, and specifically, I've always been a fan of Scorpec Destroyers. So Scorpec Destroyers are really cool for me. They actually are a nice twist on Destroyers for me, and they're different enough from the Hyrotech Circle kill team. They won't be very confusing, because they can't field Scorpec Destroyers. So then looking through the Necron range, I was like, okay, I can use Crypto Pharaohs as my mutants. And for my leader, I was going to go with the Scorpec Lord. I thought about the Hexmark Destroyer, but the problem with the Hexmark Destroyer is 6 pistols make it awkward to convert into adding, because it's basically too much fixed detail. Whereas the Scorpec Lord has a Flamer, a Gorse Reaper to represent the Flamer, and then 2 different melee weapons which also represent his Engineered for Destruction ability, because I was like, he can just choose what weapons he's using in this game. And then when it came to selecting the Glitchlings and the Mutoid Vermin, I actually discussed this a lot with Orion and a few of my other friends who were also TOs to help for their advice, because I didn't want anything too crazy. Originally, I was going to use Plasmacytes as my Glitchlings, but people thought it was kind of too egregious, because they were too big, even when Plasmacytes are cut down. But then also the other problem is they do have a shooting attack, so making them taller than standard Glitchlings It's actually modeling for advantage. So then what I ended up going with in the end was scarabs as my glitchlings, you know, just a few scarabs on each base floating in the air. Then I went with plasmacytes as my flies. I used the Delac robo worms as my sludge grubs. And then I actually was going to use Avansar Necromundan spiders as my spiders, but they were sold out until I'd finished painting the kill team. So what I had, because I already had a few of the Sylvaneth bugs, and I have a lot of Necron weaponry from when I was building stuff for 40k and other Necron kill teams. So what I did was get 4 of the Sylvaneth bugs, the arrow bugs for their like Kernite warriors, cut off all the trunks and just glue Necron weapons on the top to represent fleas, and they were like pretty much the same size. So that all worked out well for me. When it came to selecting a paint scheme, originally I was going to go with my actual Necron paint scheme, which is basically just metallic purple with purple and gold. Well, metallic purple with normal dark silver, gold, and then like red Martian bases. But I thought I wasn't really a fan of that. I wanted something different, and I really like the scheme that they have for 10th edition at the moment, which is the Cesarakan scheme. Like it's the Silent King's armor scheme, color scheme. So I wanted to do that because I also like painting bronze, and I thought it'd be a nice differentiation for that, because I was going to have like green, glowing green as like my spot color, and just like I liked that sheen of bronze. It's really nice, I think. This actually was quite difficult because you may not know or know that part of the scheme uses Cryptek Armor Shade Gloss, which doesn't exist anymore. But thankfully Charles had some because he got it from Partworks and just gave it to me. So that made me settle on the scheme because I really wanted to do bronze. I hadn't done a proper bronze scheme before, and this is like really shiny bright bronze, so not something you're used to seeing a lot, almost like a dull gold, if that makes sense, but still bronzy. But it looked cool and I just wanted to do it. Now when it came to collecting the kill team, as with all conversions and kitbashes, it's very expensive, but I did find ways to cut it down. So the Scorpec destroyers I found on eBay for very much cheaper than they are even on, you know, third-party stores, because they're not really that good in 40k, so they were easy to find. The Scorpec Lord, also not great in 40k, so I got him for like 20 quid. And then the Crypto Frowns, I got 2 sets of them for £10 each on eBay, because they're not good anymore. And then I had to order a set of 3 Necron Warrior Scarabs, because I wasn't going to, they come in huge swarms, so I was just going to trim them down. The Plasmacytes I had to raid from bit sites, as well as from the Scorpec destroyers, but just trimmed down, as well as finding the Delac grubs, and then also ordering from bit site the Sylvaneth stuff, because everything else I had. I also ordered, basically you've got these new destroyer worms, like they're the old Necron metallic snakes basically, because both of them are like new versions of destroyers, but they also have arm claws and then blade arms. So I got 1 blade arm for turning one of my Crypto Frowns to have a blade to represent the axe. And then I also bought one of the left arms to convert one of the Scorpec destroyers to cut off their blade and give an arm to represent the tentacle monster Gellerpox Infected. And then once I had everything collated, I finally built all the team. So I'll quickly go through the work in progress pictures just to show what it looked like as I started building this team, because it was all just I should have drawn and sketched stuff out, but I just sketched stuff out in my head. So it was all going from mind into matter, basically. So in the first picture, you can see my Scorpec Lord. I actually had to do a lot of work just to fit him on a 40mm base, because he is technically a lot bigger. Well, he's taller than Thrice-Cursed, and he's a bit wider, but he is so cool and fit the theme of my kill team perfectly that I wanted to use him. But what you will see is he overhangs his base a lot. I am aware of this, but you will not appreciate the magic it took to fit him on a 40mm base. While his left leg fits on, the right leg fits on because of the plastic building, and then I had to extend the back of the base with rocks for the rest of the leg to fit, which you can see from another angle here. But I had to also bend the legs back a bit because they're plastic, so it was just making it fit on that 40mm base. I also bought epic basing jagged crystals, as well as like some city fight ruins, just because I wanted to represent them walking through the ruined fields of a city. and the jagged crystals represent their chaotic Necron nature. But I was really happy with how he turned out. Then we've got my Lumberghast. So my Lumberghast is basically just the Scorpec Destroyer with the giant axe to represent, you know, the giant barging arm of the Scorpec Destroyer, well, of the Lumberghast. I've given him kind of like a mechanical brain bug head spear, which is basically the spare arm from the Cryptofrau. I was like, yeah, he puts on that head, so representing him charging in. I used 2 spikes from my Raider sprue to put on his shoulder, and then I also had, because I have leftover Necron warriors, I cut off 2 of the Gorse gunblades and put it on the knees, which you can see better from the side, to represent his battering ram rule, because when he charges in, he does mortal wounds to everyone. But it was basically a simple kit bash, just built the model as is, had to trim him back a bit for basically bending his legs, as you can see, to fit on the base, and then just with plastic glue, glued on the head spike, well, the head spike, the shoulder spikes, and then the leg struts. Now for my Flesh Screamer, basically unconverted as well. What I wanted to do with the Flesh Screamer, my rationale is it's basically a giant flayed one. So it thinks it's screaming, but in matter of fact, it's just not emitting anything, but it's covered in flesh because it thinks it's just this giant mutant Necron. So it's got its dual blades. You can also see I've given it 3 heads because the Flesh Screamer has multiple heads to represent its screaming rule. So it's got one on the head, one on the chest, and one down below. Just at eye contact, actually, with most other normal miniatures, helping represent that you are a +1 to do mission actions or pick up when you're within 3 inches of him. But this one turned out really well. The flesh strips were just random bits of green stuff, so I rolled out green stuff, then stretched it and flanned it out, and just tore it off, and then put it on, and then just like gently pushed it and smoothed out so it'd fit. Some places got a bit of super glue where it was a bit too thin, but that's where it was just touching the model and didn't really stick, just to keep it in place. Then we come to my bloat spawn. So my bloat spawn went on a few alterations based on the feedback from Orion. I cut off his blade arm and replaced it with one of those scything hands because the bloat spawn just has tentacles and a claw, because it doesn't make sense because the blade, it would look like it's doing too much damage. Then the blade, well, the tentacles are quite big, but I've had these Green Stuff World tentacle rollers for like years, so I finally used them. My big error, if you ever use the tentacle roller, please watch a guide first. Don't do what I do and just like, I'm just going to make tentacles, because I made 5 different tentacles and they were so floppy. What you're supposed to do is put like a paper clip or thin metal wire around the tentacles as you make them. I did not do that. So he had very floppy arms for several days. And while it's set, he had to sit like at an angle, so they were sitting downwards or upwards. I had to flex it out a bit, and then some of them broke off, and then I put super glue at the base to just make sure it was really well secured. It's a lot better now that it's had weeks to cure. And then I covered, once that was all dry, I blended it into the arm with green stuff. And then once that was all dry, I just covered one of the unsightly seams with a scarab I had left over. But he really turned out really well and was nice and clear as who it was. You know this is the Necron tentacle dude. And I also gave him a Deathmark head because I was like, I have a lot of Deathmark heads. For my Cryptofraus, what I basically did was put them on 25mm bases. They normally come on 32. So it was just put them on smaller bases. And then for the mutant with axe, as you can see, I cut off his arm where it glues into the side and just put on that other bladed arm. So you can clearly see he's the guy with the axe. And then the other 2 are just your normal mutants. So here are my glitchlings. They're basically just 2 scarab swarms cut up carefully and blended, and then either using the Necron plastics pins to pin them to the base, or I've just glued them onto rocks. The only problem is the far left one, unfortunately, keeps breaking, so I'm probably going to have to replace it, which I am in the progress of. But otherwise, this turned out really well. Because I've used multiple scarabs, they are technically a bit bigger in terms of footprint, so you can see them a bit more easily than the normal glitchlings, which hide a bit better. But this was an approximate size, and I really like how it turned out because they just look so cool and deadly. So then here are my plasma sites as fleas. I've got 2 from the Hyrotech Circle kill team, and then one from the Scorpec Destroyer kit and one from another Necron kit. The other 2 are a bit bigger, but I've trimmed down their scenic base so they basically just fit on a base. They are still bigger than the fleas, well, the flies normally, but this isn't too much of a disadvantage because it makes them easier to be shot in this case. But I don't really use the flies too much. But I think this was the closest representation I could get. Like, the interesting thing, compared to like the tallest of the flies, they're about the same height, they're just a bit wider. But I like how these turned out. And then finally, I've got my Delac worms, my robo snakes as my sludge grubs, and that was really cool as well. Very simple. I just changed how they were like ordered a bit, and, you know, just the orientation, but otherwise those were perfect. I was like, perfect. I was just happy I found some. And then here are what I use for my fleas. So these are all the Sylvaneth bugs I had, with just the tree stumps cut off and Necron plasma casters glued on, just to represent their deadliness. They are oddly technically a bit bigger than the normal fleas, but they're just melee units. But I like to represent they're just like, they look more organic, but they're gonna be full metal, so they're like flexi metal, and the Necron plasma casters represent their suicidal deadly punch. But here is what the fully painted Necropox / Flayer cult infected look like. So as you can see in the group photo, everyone has that nice shade of bronze. The black parts I did, like as with the Caesarakian scheme, is just black, and then all I did was highlight it, one highlight of dark grey, and then just used an oil wash of brown just in the recesses from the Cult of Paint guide, just to show it's like aged ceramic matte black metal. And then you've got the green pop stuff, which is basically just white ink. Then I used thin scorpion green contrast, then scorpion contrast mixed with green ink as the highlight. And then the crystals were basically just the same manner, white, scorpion green, washed then with Coelia green shade, and then dry brush yellow. And then all the metals were just basically Vallejo model color, like one of their dark steels, washed black, and then dry brush silver. So actually a very simple scheme. And then the weapons, I also, if I could, I blended them from black to bright green, basically for anything that was an axe or a hyperphase blade. And the barricades you can see are just the ones I used from Hand of the Archon, my Hand of the Archon. I was going to do custom Necron barricades, but I couldn't really settle on a nice 3D printed version that closely matched the footprint, so I just ended up using these ones. For my close-ups, you can see the Scorpec Lord here, green offset, because I also used for his head, I forgot to bring up when I was going through him, but the head I used from one of the Prayarch Praetorians, because I was like, I don't like the crowny king head. So that was a nice change there. But you've got some gold on the chest and tabard, but you've got the bronze everywhere else. I also, after everything was highlighted, I blended in thinned down Cryptek armor shade gloss into like the edge of the limbs, just as how heavy metal did. But you can see he's got a nice blended green blade there, but he came out perfectly. And for the buildings, the basing is brown, so I wanted the buildings to be a different color because I had grey rocks, so I just painted them dark red like my Chownath. My Flesh Screamer came out pretty perfectly. His blades were technically easier to paint than the leaders. I also forgot, for his crotch head, he also had a Necron warrior head, but he turned out really, really, really nice. I actually experimented here with the blood. So what I used was the new Army Painter Fanatic Dark Blood, and then I used the Citadel Blood for the Blood God after that had dried, and that turned out really well after I had varnished everything. But he really, really looks the picture, like just stares at you. But otherwise, it's really good. And even when I was stippling on, it kind of looked like handprints in places, just representing like basically people still alive as they got flayed. Then my Lumberghast, not the best blending, I will admit, but a decent attempt on his blade. But otherwise, he was pretty simple. He unintentionally has a really evil frown, like a smiley frown. It was completely unintentional, but it looks perfect for him. But otherwise, pretty much perfect, simple, nothing really different there. Then for my Bloat Spawn, the tentacles were painted silver as well as the claws. And once again, it just looks great. Very simple but effective color scheme. The dry brushing really helped a lot because these Citadel paints are actually very smooth and go on quite well when dry brushed. So not really much edge highlighting at all. Then for my Crypto Frowns, the best blending I did was on, unintentionally, the axe of this mutant, but it just came out really, really nice. So it makes it clear which is the mutant with the axe and which are the two mutants just with paired blades. But otherwise, I was really happy with how this came out. The only issue is it's quite faint. You see it better in person, but you can see the lighter canoptic alloy on the shoulder blades and the heads compared to the darker copper I used for the bodies. It's the same on the Scorpec Lords and the rest of the Necrons, but you see it clearly, more clearly on the mutants in person. Then my glitchlings, pretty straightforward, just bronze and green with black offsets as normal, but they came out really, really nicely as well. Then my sludge grubs, I gave them some glowing spots on the neck as well to represent more of the venom, but very, very simple. Just had to brighten up the heads a bit once they had been dry brushed and fully painted, and then I just used rust paints to represent like the rusted metal they're bursting out from. Then here are what my plasma sights look like. You know, just enough glowing stuff to represent their stun shots. And then here are what my curse mites look like, my fleas. Look at, they're so adorable, just running around, ready to fly and jump and give out death with their flying plasma casters. So overall, that's pretty much how the team came together, how it looks now, and my process as to how I went by it. I haven't taken comparison pictures because what I did with my Lucidine Star Striders, when I was sending them to TOs, I photographed them next to the original miniatures, so they were the same footprint and size. Basically for my Gellerpox Infected, they're all basically the same footprint. The only one who isn't is my leader, because my leader's huge, but my Necropox Infected do like to live at large, because my narrative behind this kill team is like, they're basically an insane group of Necrons who have been driven even more insane by the Destroyer virus and now emit basically this tech jamming signal. So the closer they get to people, their guns stop working and they start infecting stuff with their crazy techno virus, basically. One other thing I also got, I've been chatting to Phil Team a lot. He does a lot of cool work. He got me custom cards for my Lucidine Star Striders, and he did the same for my Necropox Infected. He actually coined a better name for them than I did, which is the Flayer Cult, and they are really, really cool. I love his cards, so this is a big shout out to Phil Team, because his cards help speed up how I explain stuff to opponents. It's easier for me to remember. He does them up to date. Like, he basically does them for free, but you can also donate to his coffee in general. He does a great service to the community, and like, even when I came, whenever I got mine, they also came in a cardboard box that I can use to store my cards. They got all my tac ops and abilities. And because I have my miniatures for each of the models in terms of the fighter cards, now I can say when the bloat spawn is the bloat spawn, I can give my opponent the fighter card. So now they know which operative is which clearer. He's also given me stickers, which I'm going to attach to my bases to show which operative is which more clearly. So it helps make the kill team clearer for my opponent, as well as helps me play, which is really, really good. Which is why I love Phil Team and his work so much. But that's just the story behind my kill team and how I went behind it. Because every time, you know, I'm not just a gamer, I'm quite a big hobbyist. And I've been painting a lot of kill teams, as you've probably seen. So I just wanted to show off my hobby a bit more. And like, it's not just, oh, I want to make some new kill team because I didn't like the old models. I wanted to show, like, it has to have a story for me, because I'm also bringing these to events, hopefully winning painting awards maybe, right? I'm building a display board for them as well. The display board is work in progress. So this is like spoiler pics. So it's like, I'm basically, you won't be able to see it properly, but I'm making a tomb world for this kill team. So I'll bring this display board around. Hopefully, that's been a lot of work. So once the display board is done, I'll have something full to show off. I also, for transport, these aren't great for a normal foam case. So what I've done is I've magnetized them and gotten a really useful box, and then put a magnetic sheet at the bottom, and then just sit on there with magnets. I did probably buy 2 stronger magnets, because what I didn't realize, I used 2 10mm by 2mm magnets, which are N52 grade for my 40mm monsters, which work perfectly. And then I glued 3 of them onto my mutants. And now it doesn't matter on the 40mm basis because they're so big, but the mutants are so small, the magnet's too big for them, and the polarity is so strong they actually push each other away. So if you're going to magnetize your miniatures, just do small magnets on the bases, unless they're like 40mm bases or larger. Don't do what I did, because now I have to use barrels, like placeholders, to keep my miniatures in place when I deploy them, which is very, very fun. But otherwise, the magnetization aspect of transporting has been really cool, and those really useful boxes are actually really great. So I just need to see how that handles when I basically travel overseas with them via plane. But otherwise, I'm really a fan of magnetizing for transporting now. But otherwise, to summarize it quickly, when it comes to kit bashing my teams, what I do is I come up with a brief plan first. I look at potential factions that would be like lore appropriate to the models I'm trying to proxy as. I try to get them as the similar size and something that would be clear to my opponent, because I've talked to pretty much most TOs I know and play with, and they've basically said like my proxies are fine. They look very clear. It's very easy to tell who everyone is. And like what I do to make it clearer helps as well. I also bring the normal Gellerpox kill team just in case someone doesn't want to play it, or I'm running into Pathfinders, so I'll just use the normal models instead. But I do bring both just in case. And then after that, I also speak with friends, you know, and TOs, because it's helpful if you want something that's clear, because it helps to bounce ideas off and look for opinions, because Orion helps so much with bouncing ideas off. And like just going like, oh, this is cool, but maybe this would be a bit better. Or like, that's too big to represent what you wanted to do. It was that third party idea voice, which really helps rein things in. Then it's finding a cost effective way to get all those miniatures. You could just buy the boxes direct, but I use bit sites and eBay. So those are great resources, because otherwise this kill team would have been way more expensive. Then you can also use stuff like Epic Basing. That was the first time I used them, and I really like them for the stuff they added to my basing. And then it's just finding the right paint scheme for you, color scheme, doing a test model. I should have done a test model, but I'm mad. And then there you go, you know? I also varnish everything, but that's just what I do for every game. And then hopefully that should help. So I won't do this for every kill team, because there's still like 6 to 8 other kill teams I need to show off, which I'll save probably for an end of season video, because there's a few kill teams I want to finish off, like my Harnkin Jaegers and maybe my Scout Squad. But I just wanted to show this kill team off primarily because I love them so much, and hopefully reflected in the end product. But that's pretty much it from me. Please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. Let me know what you thought of this video. Did you like this more hobby-focused video compared to my more tactical stuff? And remember, I've got a Discord you can check out in the episode description below, and a affiliate link games, and a Patreon if you want to give me some more support. And I'll quickly shout out my patrons. So for my Adept of the Crit, I have Willax, Turn Zero Gaming, Tom, Super Cow, Sam, Nick, Mr. Meatward, Mercenary Q, Lucas, John Thomas, Graham, Freeman, Dave Meatswell, Dad of Goldens, Chris, and then for my veterans, I have Sam. So thank you so much for all your support. It really means a lot to me, help support the channel. But yeah, hopefully I should have another video this week. I need to think about something else to do for Kill Team. But it's nice to be back on my Kill Team train. You know, I'll be getting some more practice games in this week and just relaxing playing Kill Team. But remember, no matter what happens when you're painting and building your own Kill Team, remember there's always a chance to win as long as you can roll a crit.